Johnson. Welcome to
Good morning.
our Wednesday weekly calls. We are here to discuss what's going on with real estate, what's going on with the Memory Group, how we serve our clients, and the different things that we have going on that people really should know about because sometimes they find that they have a need and we need to let them know what we do. So that's part of why we do these
Yes, sir.
calls. And we've had a lot of stuff going on in the last couple of months, but particularly in the last, it's been a crazy busy week these last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
including really last week, uh, where we had so many events, including and then rolling over to
Yeah.
this. So, um, one of the things you've been working on for a long time, and it's become part of our culture here with the Memory Group is our downsizing seminars, and I really call them your downsizing seminars. These are downsizing seminars which are put up through Brookdale and now through the Williamsburg Public Library. And
Yeah.
man, we've had some great turnout. The things that are coming through from those seminars, I want you to have a chance to just talk about it real briefly. And let's talk about the library event that took place last week. That was the inaugural one. So how did that go?
Yeah. Yes. So we kind of took our panel and kind of broader downsizing seminar. We've kind of chopped that up into little pieces so that we can focus on specific subjects. So we basically have formed a relationship with the Williamsburg James City County Public Library System, where we're now going to be putting on a monthly event around downsizing. So it's kind of a downsizing speaker series, if you will. At the
Right.
moment, we've got five different kind of subject areas. And so we had our very first one just last week. And, it's always interesting when you kick off an event, you don't know if you're going to have a full house or if you're going to have two people in the room. But we were fortunate enough that we ended up having to bring in some extra chairs and we had a full house. So
That was definitely a full
it was a
house.
great event.
Great discussion.
Yeah. And yeah, so that one was focusing on kind of where your next step might be. So my piece with that was kind of talking about stepping out of your current home and then what that kind of flow looks like, and if you're going to be stepping into maybe just a smaller house, condo, townhouse, apartment. But the featured speaker, Dawn Michelle, was talking about kind of your assisted living, independent living, kind of those resort style senior living communities and what those different communities offer, what the pricing is like. Some have buy-ins, some don't have buy-ins, all that. So it was a good opportunity for folks in the room to kind of just get their head around what the options are out there.
Yeah.
So often people just start knocking on doors of these facilities and running the circuit, but someone like Dawn's able to really give them kind of the overview and kind of orient them to their options, and just saves folks a ton of time. So we had a lot of great feedback. Folks really enjoyed it. I'm actually in about 20 minutes heading out to go speak with one of the folks that we met there at that event. So they're probably a year or two at least out, but just trying to get their bearings and kind of see what they need to do with the house to get it ready.
Right.
We always encourage people, if at all possible, try to engage us at least a year out. You're going to pay your realtor or your broker the same amount of money when you close, whether you hire them 30 days before you put it on the market or 2 years. So please, yeah, have us
Yeah.
work for you, have us earn it, hit us
Yeah.
early,
Give
hit
us
us
a chance to
often. So,
actually, well, first off, do some of the work for you. Interestingly, I just had the situation that we've talked about in house where somebody had made a decision that they got a higher bidder from a real estate agent to list their home for a higher price than the market was going to allow, and they
mhm.
had all this downsizing stuff that they had to take care of, and it some I'll say that the home sale took place and they were able to move on, but there were a lot of missing pieces with that, and I ended up having to kind of endure some of the things that were taking place because we know those folks really well. So they did not get the price that this other agent told them they were going to get. They got the price that I told them they were going to get. And I know this happens a lot. This happens a lot in
Yep.
our
Yep.
industry where agents are not necessarily being fully. This is something realtors don't want you to know, but there are real estate agents out there that will tell you things that you want to hear, but we're here to serve and really put people in the right position to be successful. And
Yeah.
this whole downsizing seminar and this program that you're doing allows people to have access to resources that it could take them a long time to find these resources. And we're
Yeah.
providing it, you're providing it, making it accessible. Don Michelle's got a great amount of resources. Flip that right over. We just had a big seminar yesterday at Brookdale. Brookdale's been
Yeah.
one of our hosts for these downsizing seminars for now going on a good long while. Talk about that
Yeah.
seminar
It's
yesterday.
been going on 4 years. Yeah.
That's been a long time. You
Yeah.
put a lot together into that. So that was a panel of four.
Yep.
You had
Yep.
four
So we have
people on that panel.
four people at the front of the room there, talking on different subjects. So we have someone. We had Zach Kirkpatrick with Junk Luggers. We had Jennifer Metcalf with Inside Out Transformations, talking about just the planning and the high level end of it, and kind of how to make decisions about your personal property. Your items. She'll also help with staging and getting things set up in your new place and selecting what goes, what stays. And then we had Stephanie with Brookdale at Home talking about, how they're able to help you age in place if that's your preference, and how that can transition and that service can follow you over to your next place if you do decide to make a move over to either one of those larger communities or just a different, smaller home. But a lot of good information. And then of course myself talking about the real estate side of things. But that quarterly event has kind of been a cornerstone for us for going on 4 years. And it's just, as much as anything, it's just a great opportunity to have a room full of folks that are generally 65 plus. We actually had some adult children of seniors in the room as
Yeah.
well, kind of as eyes and ears for their parents. But it's really enlightening to have a room full of people that are generally speaking in their 70s and 80s, and are kind of trying to make decisions around when to move, where to move, how to move, and I say it often that, the downsizing move is just such a unique experience that, even military families, I've had this conversation with them where they've moved 5, 10, 15 times in their lifetime. Uh, and this move is just a totally different animal. They're
Yeah.
either, they've kind of landed in that final kind of retirement home, and they've got, all the earthly possessions that they've kind of acquired along the way in their careers. And, maybe they've started taking on, mom and grandma's antique china hutch and, sentimental pieces from various family members. And now here they are in a position where they've got to move from like a 3, 4, 5,000 square moving into effectively a two-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And so there's just so many decisions that have to be made. It's an incredibly emotional move, as much as anything. What I've learned in doing those seminars is that when you're focusing on folks downsizing, much of it is mental, and I was just having a conversation with someone at the end of that last seminar, and you know we were talking about how intimidating it is, how daunting it is to decide what stays and what goes. And the comment I had for her was that, we always encourage people to try to make the move into their next location before their house at least closes, maybe even
Right.
before it goes to market. But I think one of the big values of that, aside from just not having the stress of needing everything to time out perfectly, is, just psychologically trying to, we talked about her closet, right? You know, trying to go into your closet and start taking things out to get rid of is a lot, is mentally much heavier than going into your closet, picking your favorite stuff that you're taking with you, right? So she's talking about trying to go from this big walk-in closet to a small closet. So, if she makes the move first, psychologically, all she's got to do is go into her closet, grab all the stuff she really wants. Like if you knew your house was going to burn down in 3 hours, like what would you take out of your closet, right? And then that, move that to your next place. The rest of it is like whatever. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's donate, it's sell, it's rehome, but that all you're doing is flipping the process upside down,
Yeah.
and it's the same work, but psychologically going in and picking the things you just want to take is so much easier than eliminating pieces out of your closet or out of your, your living room, right? Because you've got all those memories attached to certain outfits. Oh, this is the dress I wore to that event, right? But if you're picking what you're going to bring to your next closet, you may not bring that dress you wore to some event in 1994, right? But you don't want to pull it out and stick it aside and say, I'm getting rid of this, right?
Yeah.
So just how you approach a lot of these things. There's a lot of nuance that we've kind of picked up over the years and just how to make things simpler, less stressful, less mentally taxing, because so much of it is just, it's a mind game.
Yeah.
It's really mentally, it's a challenge.
I think as I listen to what you're talking about, I hear sort of the common element that people find themselves in when they don't plan early, or when they come to us in the last minute, or when they go to any real estate agent at the last minute and they have to sell their home. Now
Yeah.
they're not in control of the outcome. And what we're trying to do is allow them to start the planning process early and be in control of the outcome. Because if the more control you have, the less stressful it is, the less emotionally and mentally challenging it is. Not that it's not going to have some emotional and mental challenges along the way, but you're in control of it then. When
Yeah.
you're in that last minute situation where somebody's health has started to decline, and or now the decision to transfer housing ownership into a assisted living or independent living, that timeline is shrunk. It becomes a lot more painful, and you
Yeah.
lose that control
Yeah.
element. Now you've got to crash course this kind of stuff, and that's never really a good way to do it. So
Yeah.
so
And a
that's
lot
our
of those
that's
communities actually, they'll have, folks will get on these wait lists for these communities.
yeah.
So, I'm talking to somebody right now and they've been told by the community they want to move into. I believe they're looking to go to Windsor Mead. They're on a 1 year wait list. But what happens is a room opens up, Windsor Mead starts hitting the list and calling through people, right? And if a bunch of people say, no, I'm not ready yet, next thing you know, you're, 3 months down the road, you might get a call from Windsor Mead. You're expecting it in a year,
Yeah.
right? So even if you think that timeline for moving into that senior community, very often you'll kind of get surprised weeks, months early
Yeah, that
with that opportunity to move in. And so if you've been laying the groundwork and going through it, you might be able to kind of take advantage of the opportunity to move in. And a lot of these folks have specific units they really want. They want to face this direction, they want a
yeah.
window looking out over this particular thing, or I want to be on the second floor or the first floor. And so you want to be in a position where you can strike when that opportunity for that specific unit opens up. So it's good to kind of just have that all kind of gamed out ahead of time, and ideally a lot of your things kind of parsed through and packed, and just kind of be ready to strike when the iron's hot.
Yep. And we did. I know there's a million subjects we could get into, but one of the
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that was talked about, and I think it was at the library session, was actually having the realtor part of the will, actually having the
Yeah, yeah.
sale of the home controlled in the will by having the realtor selected ahead of time, which takes a lot of stress and decision factor
Hmm.
out from the process of probate and all this kind of stuff, all these things that all these decisions that have to get made.
Yeah,
We can get into that at another subject at another time,
yeah.
but that was a very interesting conversation and subject matter that was part of the gentleman with his
Continuity plan. Yeah,
continuity
there.
plan, which that's really
Yeah, I
cool.
think and it doesn't have to be in the will necessarily. It's interesting because it actually would not have occurred to me. We've seen plenty of instances where we're working with somebody for months, maybe years, right? And then something happens where either they can't communicate or they pass away. And
Yeah,
we've laid this whole plan out for what we're going to do with the home and how we're going to get the top dollar for it. And maybe certain areas are willing to invest a little money to get more for their kids out of the sale of the home, right?
yeah,
But then they pass away and their kid is, on the other side of the country or, in another state at a minimum. And and all they know is, oh, now I got to sell mom's place, right?
And they might take
And
the first cash offer that comes into their hands.
right, our other pillar, right, is real estate investing. And where do you find the opportunities to come in and basically find equity on the table? It's distressed sales very often where someone has passed away and some kids like, sure, I'll take 470 cash. Sounds good. Mom paid 280 for it 25 years ago. They don't know it's worth 675, right? And so the kids miss out, the estate misses out on the opportunity to take advantage of all the planning that mom or dad had done with a professional they trusted to carry him across the finish line. So, it wouldn't have occurred to me to like ask anybody to write me in their will. That seems a little forward, but it has happened on two, I think three separate occasions where a client of mine has passed away, and then I find out that they've written me into the will to know that somebody trusted you enough to literally write you into their will. And to that gentleman's point, he had a continuity plan that he was putting together. It doesn't have to be etched in stone, but communicate with your family, ideally your adult children. If you've got a real estate professional in your corner and you've been mapping this out and you've got a plan, make sure they know who that real estate professional is so that if something happens to you, they know who to call and they know that, this person is going to honor mom or dad's decisions regarding the sale of this home, right? And so often that, it really behooves the children ultimately, right? So it's critically important, I think, to make sure that that's communicated with your kids, so that if something does happen, your estate is treated well. And some of that extends to the personal property. We do a lot of planning with folks around the personal property. So very often you'll see a situation like that, and the house sells for some lowball cash offer because the kids can't deal with it. Well, they can't deal with your stuff either,
Oh
right?
yeah, so it
And
compounds.
so here comes the garbage hauling company, and they just
They
start
just
pitching everything you've got into a
yeah.
dumpster because they don't know what to do with it,
Again, that's
you
that's
know?
nuts. They've lost control. There's no control in that situation. So that yeah,
Right, right. And so if the real estate professional they were working with knew what the plan was, and you just sold to some cash investor or something, that, out the window all that goes. But a lot just it's enlightening to be hosting these seminars and learning from the folks on the other side of the table
yeah,
about, what their needs are, some solutions they've come up with. It's great stuff. So I'd recommend to anybody to definitely check out either our quarterly seminars at Brookdale, which are kind of a panel style presentation, and sometimes a lunch and learn like yesterday, or every month, every third Tuesday at 2 o'clock, we host now these library downsizing workshops, basically. And
uh,
so that's a different subject every month, and that will kind of cycle. So we are going to be meeting, I think, pretty consistently at the Stryker building, which is that kind of modern looking building right across from that courtyard with the fountain and the
yeah.
wisteria kind of arbor in front of the library downtown Williamsburg. But
Kind of
in that
almost a little
more modern
museum
building
like
across the
setup
way
sitting
is,
in there.
yeah, yeah. So it's great. But I got to actually go run to Queens Lake and have a conversation with somebody from last week's seminar, and
There
we'll
you go.
see how that goes, and we'll see what I learn, and we'll see what they learn at that one. But
Well, I'm sure they'll have a lot
yeah,
of
this has
questions.
been a very good one.
And hopefully, if somebody's watching this video, they realize that we're here to answer questions. So reach out, contact us, send us a put us a comment in the comments below, or send us a message through the link on the page. But real quick, Ben, we've got a couple things that are coming up with for the Memory Group. Uh, Second Sundays is downtown Williamsburg. That's the
Yep.
big downtown market event is kicked off, and our office is open for clients and guests. And then so that's something we'll talk a little bit more about that probably next week. And then we had last week's grid meeting and subject matter
Mhm.
last week for grid. I'll let you talk about that, and then real quick introduce what's coming up for next month's grid.
Yeah, yeah. Last week we had a private lender who was coming in to talk about how to access capital for real estate investments, even if you're not traditionally bankable. There's a lot of different ways to finance a deal that's underwritten by the numbers in the property and not
Yeah,
so
what's the
much you
property itself?
directly. Yeah, so there's a lot of great things came out of that. And then the next one coming up every third Wednesday at 5 p.m. We meet up over at the William and Mary Entrepreneur Hub, and that's right on Richmond Road next to the Chick-fil-A right there. But and I guess it's 5:30
Yeah, 5:30, right?
if I recall
Starts.
correctly. But yep, every third Wednesday at 5:30 we kick off there. And the next one coming up is going to be about kind of assembling your dream team. If you want to get into real estate investing, if you want to be successful with that, nobody knows everything, right? So you kind of need a tax professional, an attorney, a realtor or a broker who's going to be out there kind of window shopping for you and helping you analyze deals, finance people, right? So it's just going to be about how to assemble that team.
Contractors.
I'm sure yeah, for sure, contractors. So we'll have some of those people in the room as well. The grid format is we've got a featured speaker, starts with a little education, and then it rolls into open networking. So you'll be able to meet people who kind of fill those roles in the room and learn a little bit about how and why you put that team together and
Well, that'll
how
be
to
coming up
how to make it happen.
for next month in May, and we'll talk more about that coming up. And I know you got to get about your day because you got important things. We got a big listing coming up this weekend in Villages at Westminster. So if you're interested
Yeah,
in Villages at Westminster, this is one of the larger homes that's in there. It's got a full basement, does it not?
it does not.
Oh, it does not. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm
But
thinking
no,
about something else.
it's got like the most adorable kind of cottage, I guess I'd call it, outbuilding,
Oh yeah, okay, that's right.
climate control with its own screen port. It's really adorable. First floor, primary, it's got an addition on the back of the home. It's just immaculate, super well maintained.
Beautiful
So
home.
we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
I've got one that's coming up that's going to be a nice single level home that's going to be in a nice price point. That'll be coming to market in May. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. Ben, I'm going to let you go because you got an appointment coming up. We'll process this video and let
Yes,
people
sir.
talk about it as we get in here. We'll also have another call next week. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, man. See you.